So we get to chapter 17. It has three parts. The first part is Satan's plan exposed, and that's the first 6 verses. This harlot. And it talks about this harlot and all these strange things about her. And then God explains what's going on behind the scenes. And then God extinguishes it. That's when the harlot is killed by the 10 kings. Number 1, God hates religion. Revelation, before the second coming of Christ, chapter 17, God pours his wrath on false religion. Chapter 18, on worldliness. Chapter 17 is the collapse of the apostate world church. It's Satan's harlot bride. It's the delusion of religion. From Eden onwards, Satan has been building his church. Although Adam and Eve were tempted and fell into sin, they never joined the old serpent's assembly, but Cain was Satan's first member. Did you know that? The only person mentioned in 1 John. Did you know that? There's only one person mentioned in 1 John. Cain. He was Satan's first member. What did he do? Most people wouldn't think he did anything bad. God said, I want you to kill an innocent animal, and I want you to shed its blood and put your hand on it, and by the shedding of an innocent substitute for you, I'm going to forgive you of your sins. That was the Old Testament. That's what Adam and Eve were told to do. What did Cain do? He said, that's grisly. I'm not going to kill that animal. Blood? I'm going to bring a pumpkin. Or what did he bring? An apple? I don't know what he brought. He brought produce. He brought his prize-winning watermelon or squash or whatever it brought. It doesn't matter what he brought. What it was is, I'm not going to do your way, a blood sacrifice substitutionary atonement. I'm going to do it my way. See, he was the first one that took Satan's offer of religion. Find your own way to God. God's way is either too old or it's too messy or it's gross, blood. I'm going this way. And his church has flourished, by the way, since. By the way, Revelation 17 talks about Satan's church. Look at this description. I will show you verse 1, the judgment of the great harlot sitting on many waters, whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. The inhabitants of the earth were drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, which was full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And right away people say, this is very hard to understand. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls, and had all in her hand a golden cup full of abominations and the filthiness of her fornication. And on her forehead had a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. Verse 6, and I saw the woman drunk with the blood of these saints and the blood of the martyrs. And when I saw her, I marveled with great amazement. There's so much in here that we could study. By the way, harlots in the Roman world had this little headband thing, so that you knew for sure, that they were available. They wore kind of a little, I'm available thing. It was just part of their dressing, their decor, and men would know. They knew that, and they'd kind of keep their eye on that one, and they'd decide, and then they'd seek them out. And so, this was not, reading this to the first century, they got it. That's what a harlot looks like, and the drinking and the dress and everything like that. But what is it talking about? Well, Satan's church officially began in an organized way at the Tower of Babel. Do you remember when all humanity joined together with one language to rebel against God? The beginning of organized religion, about 24 centuries before Christ, in the fertile plains of Shinar, very close to the original Garden of Eden, the first spade of dirt was turned for the purpose of devil worship. Remember, they were making this tower to reach to the heavens? The first full-time minister of Satan was Nimrod. He's described as the apostate, wicked grandson of Noah in Genesis 10. Secular history and tradition tells us Nimrod married a woman who was just as evil and demonic as himself. Her name was Semiramis. She knew, like everybody back then knew, because they were so close to the flood when all this knowledge was passed on, that God had promised a future Savior in Genesis 3, and Semiramis brazenly claimed that her son Tammuz fulfilled that prophecy. Now, she made up this great story. So let me tell you about what is this mystery of Babylon in the wilderness talking about. Well, if you know anything about world history, there's something that all world ancient religions have in common. It's a mother-son worship. It's a mother with a little son. And usually the mother is big and the son is little, like sitting on her lap or she's holding him or something. It's the mother-son thing. Semiramis is the mother. That's Nimrod's wife. The son is Tammuz. What happened to Tammuz, by the way? Well, she said this. Her son was out, walking along the riverbank, and a wild boar found him, and the wild boar, took its tusk and gored him and trampled him, and all kinds of pieces of him were left on the riverbank. And she was sad, and she picked up all the pieces, and she put them into a basket, and she mourned for him for 40 days, and at the end of 40 days, he came to life. Doesn't that sound interesting? Dumb, fanciful, pagan. That is the worship of Babel, because that's how this mother-son thing with the resurrection is in all these religions. All of them. Now, not all of them have a wild boar, but all of them have a mother and son, and the precious son dies, and he comes back to life. Some of them, like the Roman and Greeks, a beam of light touches him from the sun. But they all have this. So this myth goes to Aramean countries or Syria, and Ishtar is the mother, and Tammuz is the son. In Phoenicia, as in the Tyre and Sidon, or Hannibal, you ever heard of Hannibal and the elephants? That was the great Phoenician Empire. It was all over the Mediterranean. They had Ashtaroth and Baal. Now that should ring a bell from your Old Testament studies. This is what we're talking about. Ashtaroth's the mother, Baal is the son. Baal dies, Baal comes back to life, Baal is to be worshipped. What is that talking about? It's talking about what we see nowadays in a major religion that worships the mother and the son. And the mother has access that you need to go to her to get to the son. See, that's what all these religions have in common. By the time we get to Egypt, Isis is the mother and Osiris is the son. You've heard of those two. By the time we get to Greece, Aphrodite, Eros. Now, all of you have heard of the last one. In Rome, they renamed the mother Venus. They renamed the son Cupid. That's the little naked fat child with the bow and arrow from Valentine's that you see. That's Cupid. That's the son of Venus. And that's the Roman form of mystery religion. Now, remember, my PhD was in church history. And so I could talk about history all day long, but it would not get this class done. So Cain, the Tower of Babel, and the beast in the final world religion, there's a wonderful book about that. It's called The Two Babylons, Alexander Hislop. He was a historian from the British colonial empire days who spent his life tracking down all this archaeology as they were finding it, and the British Museum, and he wrote this amazing book that ties together Genesis 4, Genesis 11, Revelation 13, 17, and 18. I looked on Amazon, and the last time I looked, it was like $4.99 or something. It's fascinating for those of you that like study. But by the time we get into the Bible, picking this up, we find in Jeremiah 44 that Israel had adopted the Queen of Heaven worship. You can read about that in Jeremiah 44, 17 and 19 and 25. And they did this, calling her the Queen of Heaven, which is that all those names down the left, that I read off to you, whether it's Ashtaroth or Venus or whatever they called her. And they worshiped her, we find in Jeremiah, by making wafer cakes, putting her initial on it, and worshiping her son, Baal, who came back from the dead. So let's talk about this, because it gets into New Testament times. Revelation 17, that harlot, I personally believe the tribulation's apostate church will be the Roman Catholic Church merged with all the other world religions. I don't believe that the Roman Catholic Church is the harlot. I believe that the global one world religion is going to be. You say, what do you mean by that? Well, Bonnie and I just got back from spending, weeks in Rome. You go up to Assisi. Did you know they regularly have conferences, the Roman Catholic Church, where they invite in the Dalai Lama? You know who he is? The Tibetan mystic. They invite in whatever the top Buddhist is called, the top Shinto. They invite in the imams of Islam. They even invite in the tribal people from Africa. They're not trying to share the gospel with them, I can assure you. They're trying to find, look what it says. You may not believe it, that would ever do that, but they're already starting to find areas of agreement. The Roman Catholic Church, temporarily, Islam's growing fast, but temporarily it's the largest religion in the world, Romanism. It has the most public adherents. They are in talks with all other global religions that are major. Look at, to find areas of agreement. Do you know what they've already found with Islam? The Islamic faith reveres Mary. Wow, there's a great. Why would the Islamic faith revere Mary? Because their roots go back to this mother-son thing. That's part of ancient religions from the get-go, from the start. So Islamic people revere Mary, and boy, the Roman Catholic Church reveres Mary. We have something in common, so let's keep talking. And they're finding these points of agreement. That's the horror of this. Most Americans don't pay any attention to this fact. They say, oh, my Catholic Church in my block doesn't believe that. Yeah, but what is the doctrine? What is Romanism? Not your local manifestation. What is the doctrine of the church? The world of religious professionals are very aware of this trend of global religion. By the way, this is the second woman we're seeing close together. Israel in chapter 12, remember we already went through this with the war in heaven. See the difference? Israel's in heaven. The woman riding the beast is on the earth. This mother is the child, the man-child is the emphasis. This woman, it's a harlot. She's clothed with the sun, Israel, but this woman is clothed in her purple, scarlet, and gold harlot outfit. The identity is involved with the sun, moon, and stars, speaking of the Creator. This harlot is earth, the kings of the earth. And then Satan is opposed to this, and you can just see the difference. And look where they end up. Israel ends up in New Jerusalem. The woman riding the beast is the habitation of demons and ends up being destroyed in the tribulation.